What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
It wasn't exorbitant, it wasn't cheap either, but if you wanted to lease land in Anglacia, you'd be looking at a minimum of 3 silver coins per square meter. We would have to pay an effective annual income tax on this land, but it was better to secure it now than later. However, we faced a more significant problem. Profit mattered less at this point. The looming threat was that Blumund would dictate the terms and conditions of this rail project. A disaster. Sir Rimuru could be oddly carefree about such matters, but Big Mama never yielded an inch. I could already envision her scowling at me, saying,
"Why did you allow them to change their conditions midway?"
Everything would have been fine if we had established a good relationship, but the problem with people is that they come and go. It became imperative to secure permanent rights to the desired land. What if they decided to raise the rent on us? Not that I believed they would. If the price increase was reasonable, we could accept their terms through negotiations. However, if they imposed exorbitant charges, it could escalate into a national-level crisis. And, well, I fully understood that all of this was hypothetical, but Big Mama always advised me to consider all potential possibilities. If we had control over the land, we could reject any unjust demands from their side. However, if they held the upper hand and refused to budge on their terms, we would be in trouble. In case of a conflict, it would be the landowners who had the advantage, and we would have to retreat. That's why securing those land rights was crucial. If obtaining them proved impossible, it would be extremely challenging to spend too extravagantly on that land. As I contemplated my next move, Veryard grinned at me.
Now, we initially planned to adjust the rent based on the economic situation, but Myourmiles, I have some good news for you.
He was starting to irritate me.
What news is that?
Oh, it's quite simple. As a gesture of our good relations with your country, the Kingdom of Blumund is prepared to offer you some concessions.
Concessions, you say?
Yes, to be precise, regarding the prime spots I mentioned earlier, we are willing to negotiate a permanently binding lease agreement that recognizes the land as extraterritorial areas.
You are?
I expressed my surprise to him. It almost seemed too good to be true. And before I could even consider any hidden motives, Veryard seemed ready to explain.
Now, let me assure you that there are no hidden catches. His Majesty Dolan Blumund himself proposed this idea. I was initially against it, but it was accepted after the other ministers sided with him. This concept has its pros and cons for us, you see. The obvious downside is that other nations might look down on us if we sell our land in fragments like this.
Yes, I suppose they might.
I was surprised that he wasn't concealing more about this, but I had a fairly good idea of the potential advantages for them as well.
As for the benefits, well, we anticipate that Tempest will make substantial investments in our nation if we commit to this agreement. Additionally, we have identified certain advantages that Blumund can retain through the specific conditions outlined in our lease agreement.
Meaning?
Those conditions were the source of my concern.
Oh, nothing too complex. Firstly, we would like you to hire our citizens as your employees. Secondly, we would like you to establish the headquarters of the Four Nations Trade Alliance in our country.
Now it all made sense. If we built the FNTA's main office in Blumund, it would go beyond being a mere logistical center. It could become the nerve center of the global economy. I could even envision it surpassing Anglacia's current position at the forefront. Blumund's value would skyrocket in that case. Undoubtedly, the cost of its land would increase as well. If nations from all over the world built embassies there, the real estate alone could become a profitable venture. Unlike the tourism industry, this business would be less susceptible to economic fluctuations. Moreover, it would generate more job opportunities for the people of Blumund. If they were truly committed to aligning themselves with the FNTA, it could be a highly rewarding gamble for them. It was truly impressive to witness Sir Dolan's strategic thinking. He had a natural inclination for taking risks. Furthermore, the notion of Blumund taking center stage in global economics aligned with Sir Rimuru's vision. With no objections to any of this, I eagerly conveyed my agreement to Veryard. Shortly thereafter, after meticulously ironing out all the minor details, we had a formal treaty in place. This agreement was designed to safeguard the vested interests of both nations, rendering it null and void during times of war and similar circumstances. I was reasonably content with this treaty, or at least I believed I was. However, for future reference, I still wanted to ascertain Veryard's genuine sentiments on the matter.
Now, if I may ask you a question.
Yes.
You see, Viscount Veryard, Apparently, you were personally opposed to signing this agreement. May I inquire about your current thoughts on the matter now that it has been ratified?
After all, the FNTA had secured quite favorable terms. It would introduce some bureaucratic hurdles for Blumund in its dealings with other nations. Perhaps Veryard wasn't vehemently against it, but I wondered if he wasn't the biggest advocate either.
Oh, so you're curious about that?
Veryard responded. He paused for a moment, lost in thought. Then, without looking at me, he got up from his seat and walked over to a nearby window. I observed, unsure of what he was doing. He cleared his throat as I pondered his actions.
I'm going to have a brief conversation with myself, so please disregard me,
he said with seriousness.
Nobles are beings who never reveal their true feelings. In fact, displaying their emotions could prove fatal. Even if a negotiation doesn't go as planned, they will still boast and proclaim that it went exactly as intended. Anything less would be seen as weakness, and weakness can be easily exploited. So, what I want to make clear is that I was opposed to this agreement in the past. You can interpret that as my full agreement from the moment I signed the treaty.
I was taken aback. So, this was how he truly felt. If that was the case, it seemed like Veryard had been aiming for this outcome all along. I didn't feel like I had necessarily lost the battle, but it served as a reminder of how challenging it was to negotiate with the nobility.
Boy.
I couldn't help but mutter.
I see I still have much to learn. Here I thought I excelled at dealing with high-ranking nobles like yourself. Now I'm concerned that I may lack the courage to continue serving as the head of the FNTA.
No, Myourmiles, you strike me as a rather cunning negotiator, if I may be blunt.
I gladly accept the compliment.
I chuckled, surprised to see Veryard joining in. His previous cold demeanor seemed like a distant memory now. Encouraged, I decided to take a risk and take one more step.
Forgive me if this is forward, but I hope you'll hear me out. Would you have any interest in working for me?
I already suspected the answer would be no, but a part of me genuinely meant it. If someone as talented as Veryard joined my staff, I couldn't ask for a better ally as we expanded into Anglacia, which undoubtedly would pose challenges. Veryard pondered.
But listen to me, speaking nonsense. You can treat it as a joke.
I quickly added.
Well, hold on. That's actually quite an intriguing offer.
Veryard responded.
Oh?
I exclaimed, pleasantly surprised by his response. Veryard carefully observed my expression, and it seemed he was not toying with me.
Do you truly mean that?
Yes, you see, I have been contemplating a change of employer myself.
Veryard replied. He proceeded to provide me with an overview of Blumund's current situation and his vision for its future. As he explained, the phrase, wise people, bountiful country, had its advantages and disadvantages. It would undoubtedly bring peace and prosperity to the people of Blumund, but it could also diminish the power of the kingdom's nobility.
In Blumund, you see, the nobility does not possess vast land holdings. In fact, in terms of numbers, there are only a few of us, perhaps 1% of our population of 1 million. Among them, there are just under 2,000 knights, and when you consider their families, the total adds up to about 8,000. Based on these figures, you can understand that only a small group of nobles are actively involved in politics. Less than 100 in fact. This is acceptable for now, but I believe that in the not-too-distant future, our titles will be reduced to ceremonial roles. That is the direction His Majesty has indicated in his plans.
I see. Even a small number of nobles can still wield influence in a country the size of Blumund. But how could such a nation undergo such significant reforms while still considering the interests of the nobility? There must have been some resistance, yet here they were, reinventing themselves.
And personally, Viscount, do you oppose any of these changes?
No, I do not. To me, earning a profit takes precedence.
Veryard replied with a grin.
However, I do believe that I need to find alternative employment before I find myself unemployed.
His smile conveyed the whole story. This had been orchestrated from the very beginning.
Now I understand your intentions. This is your way of auditioning instead of directly answering my question, isn't it?
Ha, I anticipated that you would see through it.
Veryard chuckled. Oh, I was certain. If I hadn't, he would never have considered working for someone like me.
So you are genuinely interested?
I am. I would be delighted to work for you, Myourmiles, albeit in an advisory capacity for now, if that suits you.
That made sense. he still held his noble title, so he couldn't make any major moves just yet. What I truly desired was Veryard's knowledge and experience, so serving as an advisor was more than satisfactory for me.
Certainly. I greatly appreciate your open-mindedness.
I responded sincerely.
And I appreciate the offer.
We exchanged defiant smiles and shook hands, solidifying our agreement. With Veryard's full support, the Four Nations Trade Alliance began to experience steady growth. It wouldn't be long before our company would directly confront the most influential merchants in the land, our formidable competitors in the business.
And that's what brings us to Anglesia after a while. Guard.
Bid, my trusted bodyguard, and I had developed a close relationship over time, allowing us to address each other by our first names. He had undergone training in Tempest, significantly improving his strength from a D+ rank to a solid B. He now had a new set of equipment, and I had enough confidence in him to accompany me on all my extended business trips. Accompanying us was Gobman, who had transformed into a battle-hardened hero that left people in awe. His strength easily surpassed an A rank, and I suspected he had even evolved into an ogre mage. Ogre mages were legendary beings, or so I had been told, but they seemed to be quite abundant in Tempest. It was such an absurd notion that I simply accepted it as reality to avoid questioning my sanity.
That's correct. I have a very important meeting today, and it will take me into, slightly risky territory.
Oh, sounds like you'll need me then.
Come on. Goldman. You know he's got me right here.
Ha! We'll see.
Gobman openly laughed at Bid's hyperconfidence. Despite being an ogre mage, his skin color remained the same as before, which I assumed varied among ogres. He had small horns that he could easily conceal with a hat or bandana. Today, he wore a hat that matched the sharp business suit I had specially tailored for him. At first glance, he appeared like any other hobgoblin, allowing him to catch his enemies off guard. I don't mean to downplay Bid's abilities, he has been very reliable to me, but it was Gobman who truly served as my most valuable bodyguard. Even with 2 guards by my side, today didn't feel entirely secure. After all, I was about to meet with the merchants who essentially controlled the Western nations. Not that I had any reason to worry. Sir Rimuru, being aware of my plans for the day, provided me with a sense of security. Whether our negotiations succeeded or not, having him watch over me made me feel confident and protected. Now, I could relax and be in my element. A meeting hall filled with top businessmen and women from around the world, all present at my invitation. As a man like me, it couldn't get much more thrilling.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Jared Bressler, Chad Vota, Chris Guzman, Havox, Speed Saber, Curtis Loban, Judah Herrera, Just a Guy, Miss L.W. Hernandez, Zach Rossan, Jarius Ladek, Stone Larone, Donald Williams, Moab A, Day of Light, John M, John Charles, Godman Gaming, Markithian Tidwell, Adrian, Kumo, Sanketh Chelu, T. Bush, John L, Edgar Fuentes, JV, Dirty Old Hobo, Thomas, J, Christ, Juan Ignacio, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Vethelny, Lunel Scarlett, Khaled, Christian Deshazer, Cal Robs, Divine C. Harris, Panda Cats, Aaron Alarcon, DeAndre Nance, Monty Boy 98, D-Man, Ruben, Yuki Iki, Gray, Chris Jr., Isaac, Koala King 93, Paul DeGrassi, Little 95, Quilly Buckner, Zephyras, Alver, Normal Defate, Joshua Andrade, L, Gary Miles, Dragon Spawn 666, J Rule, Liron Sangkap, Lucas Gay, Jason Martin, Ekotski, Ethan Madison, Sky T, Diego Ginoza, Jason Torres, Sesh, Guy Ansley, Emperor WSA, Mika Espinosa, George Hage, Pratik Bandari, Arod Dare, Faiz Mansour, Jackson Early, Smexy, Carl Stephen Bernadal, Gareth Hashimoto, Steven Madison, Homelike Drop, Vasto Lord, Martin Ramos, Marl Barsha, Hansel Ortega, Karam Faraj, Efrain Hernandez, Luca Gaming WTF, William Locke, Jordan Mersha, Arian Booker, Kamal Luke, Alvin Quarty, Steven, Mose Chaudhary, Spencer Candila, Ian Sekibuyol, Putate, Thanakorn Lee Sawat. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.